Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hey everybody, welcome aboard. This is a very exciting episode of ResortLoop.com. I'm Tim Scott.
I'm Bob Collar.
This is episode number 16. Today on the show, we're going to be joined by our friends and blokes at the Disafterdark.
I think it's like 2 a.m. over there right now, I think. So
and it might be tomorrow or yesterday. I don't know how the date works.
Right. So we're going to hang on to them as long as possible. But before we get started, Tim, can I throw out a couple of shout-outs?
You throw out yours, and I think I have one or two to add. So yes, absolutely.
All right. On iTunes, we got Yankstad said, awesome new podcast. Great hosts. They must be talking about the guys we're going to talk about.
That's
here
what I was thinking.
Great information. He must be on a different site. Very easy to listen to, and I like that they tell you their real opinions about different Disney topics. I look forward to each new episode. Keep them coming. So thank you, Yankstad on iTunes for that one. I also got R. Kelly, WDW, on the Twitter. She says about us, I think they're quite good. Have fun listening. A little facey thing there, the Twitter facey thing. So,
hey.
Thank you for that. And I got one more from Norm B8S on the Twitter. He says, just downloaded episode 15 of your podcast. First time I'll be hearing your podcast. Looking forward to it. So I gave him a shout out, even though he doesn't tell us how he likes it. So
okay, well, hey, that's
maybe
all right.
He'll like it.
I hope so. Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Great. I have one off our blog, actually. It's from Disney Dreamer. Says, I love your podcasts, with a smiley face thingy. Use a technical term. Please, could you do a shout out for @DisneyDreamer on one of your podcasts? It would really help. I'm not sure how it helps, but there you go.
Shout out.
Do what we can do.
Disney Dreamer.
And then I have one more.
That's all.
It's from Ann. She gave us a little tip. She said, we always rent DVC points for our hotel stays. You can get a great deal on a Walt Disney World hotel by doing this, whether it's doing it through the Disboards or an actual company. We are staying in the Standard View studio for a week in the fall for under $120 per night, including tax. You really can't beat that. So there's another option. Rent the DVC points.
That's something we're looking into actually for our June trip is doing the DVC points, because even though you're getting a 30% discount from Disney on the deluxe resorts, I don't know. I'm going to have to see what it looks like on the DVC, because if I can get a 1-bedroom suite for the same price I'm getting a deluxe resort, I'm jumping all over that.
That sounds great.
I am going to check that out.
Excellent. All right, well, there's our shout-outs for the week. Thanks for joining us. Awesome.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening.
So right now, we're joined by Paul and Nick from the Disafterdark Podcast. Hey, guys.
And Paul.
I'm Paul.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Paul, too.
Two Pauls.
Paul. Yeah.
Hi, guys.
There's way too many of you guys. Way too many of you guys.
Well, we like to live up to expectations. Hello. Thanks for having us.
That's our pleasure.
Thanks for being here.
And
guys.
Just to warn your listeners, we've been drinking for an hour.
We are British.
Gordon's alive.
Oh, awesome.
And they've got soundboards, apparently. So that's cool.
They have a budget.
It gets irritating after about 5 minutes.
But never like drinking, so.
Right. The more pints you have. We recommend you guys. Yeah. Hey, listen, everybody. You got to listen to these guys. They're a lot of fun. They are an English podcast, and they give you a great different perspective on touring Walt Disney World, and they give you some great tips on going to Disneyland Paris, which is kind of what we want to talk to you guys about. But how do people get in touch with you guys before we get started?
This makes a difference. I'm going to do this bit. They can find us at www.disafterdark.com or Twitter @disafterdark. Go on, someone else can do the rest of it.
Facebook.com/disafterdark. Pinterest. My telephone number is +44. Actually, no, it's probably not a good idea. Yeah, we're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. Google+, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube. Other websites are available, yeah.
Many banned internet websites, I'm sure.
Yeah. Be careful if you type in Disafterdark into Google. Have your safety just not us, just to clarify.
There's a very close misspelling.
Yes,
but it's not a site you want to go to in the presence of kids.
Oh my!
Or possibly your wife.
And we had no idea, so you know.
No, I didn't do that deliberately to wind people up.
Hey, Paul, I got a quick question for you.
Which one of us?
Paul B. Paul B.
Is he the good Paul or the bad Paul?
He's the slightly drunker Paul. The other one's more grown up than I am.
The logo, your logo is very cool. It has 3 moons. Was this before or after the Star Wars acquisition by Disney? Is this Endor? What is this we're looking at on your logo?
It comes from a time when we were... there are 3 of us on the podcast, and we once saw Lou Mongello and all showed him our moons.
Did you really? Are you serious?
Oh.
Because that would be awesome.
Unfortunately, I'm never actually serious. So much to my chagrin and my bank manager's hatred.
When you said it comes from a time, I thought you were going to say it comes from a galaxy far away.
Do you know what? As a big Star Wars fan, I haven't got any Star Wars effects on my soundboard. I'm going to have to dig some out.
Oh.
But no, it was just it stemmed from the fact that we were originally, when we first started the podcast, we decided to be Disafterdark, and it's a bunch of blokes down a bar who drink beer and talk about Disney. And we started off with a bit more of an adult, explicit tag, and we explained all on Wakefield Report podcast. He did a big interview, so we'll plug another podcast as well.
We're just all about plugs. Plugs.
Yeah, we're all about plugs.
I listen to Chris Wakefield, so that's fine.
Yeah, cool. It just kind of... We had an original one, and I designed it, and then along came Nick's wife, Lindsay, and basically put me in my place and told me she didn't like it, and came up with another idea. So put the moons in.
Well, it's very cool.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
I like it. It's a hidden Mickey kind of thing you got going there, and that's very cool.
Yeah. I'm never very good at hidden Mickey. It's kind of obvious, really.
Yeah,
I think I found a niche market there. I'm going to write a book on obvious Mickeys.
No one's done one.
Yeah.
No one's done one.
Obvious Mickeys in the park. Look, there's a guy there in a red jacket and a suit and everything with big ears. If you look at his face with the big nose and the enormous ears, there's actually a not hidden Mickey there.
What about the guy holding all those not hidden Mickey balloons?
Yeah. Or that guy standing over there with the T-shirt with
the obvious face. Mickey on it.
Yeah.
That ice cream bar looks strangely like a Mickey head. The odds must be astronomical.
That's very cool.
Thanks. I'm not a graphic designer. It was Lindsay.
I like it. It is awesome. It's a great great logo.
Out.
So you guys are right across the channel from Disneyland Paris. How many times do you guys typically go a year?
How many times do I go a year? 0.3.
Really? you don't go?
About once every 3 years.
Oh wow.
By the time I've saved up. We've discussed it with a few sort of American guests in the past that with you guys out there, you tend to get down to Florida or over to California for 4 days, 5 days a week at a time. But for us, it's never worth the while, especially when you consider Orlando is not just Disney.
Right.
It's Universal and SeaWorld and Busch Gardens and Legoland now and everything else, that there's no way we could get over there for 4 days and come back.
Technically, you do have Paris.
Yeah.
If you wanted to go and see that.
Oh, right, yeah.
How often? Right.
But that's full of French people.
And they speak French, too.
That is a great point.
How often? How often do you get to Disneyland Paris?
I would say
3 times a year, but
Yeah, I would say that over the last 4 years, I think I've been 5 times. I think I try and go at least once a year.
Nice. How long do you go then?
Well, I mean, really, it's not a huge park. It's very much, it's more along the lines of Disneyland California than Disney World. So you don't need to go there for a huge amount of time. I mean, I've got friends that will actually go for the day. It'll be a long day. And the only thing is, don't get me wrong, you won't get nearly everything done at all. But you'll get a feel for it. But you can do that. The problem with Disneyland Paris is the cost. Really, you know, we was looking the other day. I turned 30 this year, and my wife suggested that you know, we're due to have a baby very soon, so we're not going to be doing too much this year. It's suggested maybe going for like a day or going for like a couple of days to Disneyland Paris. And I mean, there are deals out there, but booking direct with Disneyland Paris for 2 nights in a 2-star resort. You was looking at over £600 for the 2 of us, and that didn't include transport.
Oh my!
Oh wow!
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is, it's really silly because it actually pays to book everything separately with different companies. I've done some extremely good deals. Last year we went. There was 6 of us. And I managed to get us there for 4 days with transport and accommodation and tickets for about £400.
Oh,
but that took that was a lot of clever thinking on my part and planning and organising. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's great to go to, but the prices do seem quite crazy.
Now, I've listened to your guys' podcast before, and you, I can't remember which one of you guys said, but you said you would rather save up for a Walt Disney World trip than spend the money over at Disneyland Paris.
I think all of us have probably said that, but we've had a few guests that have done that are not big Francophiles, for want of the correct phrase. I mean, I tend to stay out of the arguments when people involve. It's like, how do you get to go so often? How do you make it so cheap? And because my answer is always do what I did and marry a travel agent.
That is a good tip.
Which kind of rules most people out. We drive. I get in a car first thing in the morning, stupid o'clock in the hour. I drive and I can, if I leave at 2:00, I can be down in the parks by 10:00, 9:00 in the morning. So it's not as far as it first seems on a map, but and then you get to the French roads, and I don't condone speeding or anything, but I have got a rally car.
But if your destination is Disney, then at the same time, you can get the Eurostar train, which goes from to and actually will take you to Disneyland Paris itself, and you can do that in 2.5 hours.
Oh wow!
So it's there are ways, but yeah. I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure. I know I'm a bigger fan than you, Paul, but Mr. Dolan, am I a bigger fan of Disneyland Paris than yourself? I think I am, aren't I?
Possibly. I mean, Disneyland Paris is a beautiful park, so it is worth a visit. But we like to use it in between Florida trips as just a little boost. So we might go for 4 or 5 nights, and maybe throw in 1 night in Paris. In between trips to Florida, so we enjoy it. We really do like it. We've been there at Christmas. We've been there at Halloween. It's nice, nice at different times of the year. But it is relatively expensive, and it isn't enough for like a big holiday. 3 or 4 days there is probably enough.
The strange thing is, I mean, we mentioned it a couple of times in the last few episodes, and at risk of repeating ourselves. Our Big Thunder Mountain is head and shoulders above any other Big Thunder Mountain I've been on. Our Space Mountain is a great ride and so much better than anything else. Our Tower of Terror is really clean and beautiful, really well themed. Our Main Street is freshly painted and clean. Looks as like the day it was born.
I'd argue it's the best Main Street out there.
Cool.
However, and you know, our castle, if you've seen pictures of it, if you're a big fan of castles, without wanting to get into the but Walt designed the one at Disneyland and etc., our castle is probably the most beautiful castle out of all the castles in all the parks. But as a park, it is not as good as the sum of its parts. And if I had to choose between a fortnight, which is 2 weeks in American speak.
Nice.
Anyone who wants to listen to our last episode will realise where that came from. Anything. I've lost a train of thought. That's several beers now. Oh, what was I on about?
Some of the parts.
Yeah, it is not the sum of its parts. But given the choice between a fortnight in Florida and 4 or 5 days in Paris, you know, you'd be mental not to choose Orlando. To give you one last kind of point on this, just to give you an idea, I got an email through from a travel company the other day. And this is one that, you know, quite often will do last minute deals, but I could get 2 weeks in Orlando, near Disney World, so not on iDrive, but nearer to the parks. And car hire for the 2 weeks, flights, everything. The only thing would have had to book was tickets for the parks for about £450 each.
Wow!
Whoa!
So I mean, the thing is, that's last minute. That those don't always come along. You're probably looking at least double that normally, at least double that. But you know, that's 2 weeks in Florida with all the different theme parks there, compared to the same cost for about 3 days in Paris.
But it is weird how we tend to go to Florida, and I say we as a nation, for 2-3 weeks, sometimes even longer than that at a time, and you guys tend to get down for a week tops.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I've run into probably right, and I've probably run into more people from the UK than any other parts of the world when we go down.
I apologize.
Is it? Everybody's been very pleasant.
Actually, very wonderful. Yes.
Yeah. Other than if you listen to one of our older podcasts, one of our listeners had a problem with a German fellow, but that was a whole other thing. So.
And he was German.
And he was German.
We had that.
I couldn't possibly comment. If anyone follows me on Foursquare, you'll know I spend a lot of my time there at the moment. I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
But do you guys find that because of the weak dollar right now that you guys are getting better deals to be able to come over here?
Don't know. I get paid in US dollars. I love it.
Trust me, they're a lot lower than what they used to be.
I think, I mean, to be honest, the first time, I'm more late to this game than the other guys. My first time going to Orlando myself was in 2007. And at that time, it was about $1.85 to a British pound. Now it's about 1.55 or something. It's still a very good exchange rate, and it really, for me, it means that when I go to Orlando, I get more bang for my buck across the board. Right. So that's merchandise, food, everything like that. But the actual cost of the holidays, because you're kind of getting them from the UK, you're not really getting the benefits of the pricing that you'd get from America. But I suppose at the same time, they're probably getting discount rates themselves, which in turn helps.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We also get a lot of villas that are 10 minutes from Disney, which is really weird. That's the Microsoft 10 minutes of the blue bar that says, I've got 10 minutes to do.
Yeah,
exactly.
We did get some different deals off the Disney website. So, for example, because we come for 2 or 3 weeks, even, you'll get like a 14-day or a 21-day ticket that isn't available in the US. So, I mean, we get some some pretty good prices on tickets because of the length of stay.
Okay.
So you stay pretty much off property. Is that what you're saying for the most part?
It varies. I mean, personally, we tend to stay on site, but I guess different people do different things.
Yeah, first time I was out in 1998 was my first trip, and we were off site in a hotel that has long since been demolished, which was nothing to do with me. And second time we rented a villa, which was just a group of friends holiday, and then myself and the wife, we went out for a honeymoon and with our first holiday with our kids, both times at Port Orleans Riverside, and staying on site. Again, I've been out with conferences a couple of times and I stayed in the Dolphin, so I'm kind of an on-site guy more than anything else. But having been out on a holiday / vacation with the two kids, trying to get them to sleep in a hotel room where there were 2 beds, and my girls were 18 months and just on 4 years at the time, it made for a very interesting holiday as we're trying to go, well, I can't put the telly on now.
Right.
So it was kind of sit there and get home from the parks, read a book. So we have sworn next time we are going with the off-site villa. And then they opened up the Art of Animation with the family suites, and it's like, oh, okay. Oh no, now I'm all in the quandary again. So a bit more research is needed.
Right, absolutely. Can you give us a kind of a comparison of the Disneyland Paris hotels to the Walt Disney World hotels?
And I've heard they're very expensive.
Similar?
The difference in prices is negatable.
Okay.
Around Disneyland Paris, you've got a lot of feedback in the
What's
going
parks?
on?
Wow. That's weird.
No. Okay. Oh, it's gone. That's all right. I've got my own voice back. You can edit that thing out.
That was wild. That was cool.
Yeah. It all went a bit Hendrix. Right. I think if we start, you've got a hotel called Sequoia Lodge in Paris, which is a very similar nature to the Wilderness Lodge, the kind of green roofed Wilderness Lodge type area. You've then got the Newport Bay Club, which from the outside looks like it might be a what I'm thinking, Yacht and Beach Club, you reckon?
Like Yacht and Beach Club, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But from the inside looks a bit more like 40 Towers. You've got the Hotel New York, which doesn't really match anything in Florida. It's themed like a Manhattan skyline. If anything, I would say it was closer to an exterior colour scheme of the Dolphin and Swan.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But with a New York skyline type thing, and during the winter has a little ice rink out the front. Then you've got Hotel Cheyenne, which I've not seen anything like it really in Orlando. I guess the RV park is the closest thing you'll get.
It looks like some kind of old West Town.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Wilderness almost. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of that sort of thing. Very old West, bunk beds and things. And then what else we got?
Santa Fe.
Yeah, Santa Fe, pretty much like an old Adobe type building.
Okay.
Very much that's got a bit of a Cars theme going on at the moment. In that they've put some Cars posters and a car outside it.
That's the theming, eh?
Yeah.
The Southwest would think Cars.
Yeah, I've never actually been in that one, so I can't really go. I don't know if either of you guys have been to that one.
I've been to Cheyenne and Santa Fe.
Yeah.
Santa Fe for a long time had the massive post you're talking about.
Yeah.
Had a kind of picture of Clint Eastwood.
Fair enough.
Very strange. But I mean, I will say, as good as it is to mock the giant Cars picture, at least the rooms now have Cars themed wallpaper and bed spreads and stuff. So there's an element, but I mean, I personally don't think the theming's quite as strong with that. What I've tend to found, and I mean, this will not really matter too much to you guys unless you plan on coming to Disneyland Paris, but certainly my tip to anyone, in Europe that is planning to do that, there is a train line that runs straight into Disneyland Paris, and it's on one of the Paris metro system lines, like an underground tube train, and there are lots of hotels on that route that are really reasonable to stay in. And I mean, I stay at a hotel in the little town. They've got a town there that's a bit like Celebration, called Marne-la-Vallée. It's based around the same principle, where it was a town built with funding by Disney for kind of cheap places for workers to live in the local area, as well as other businesses and whatnot. And I stay in that district. It's about 3 minutes on the train to get into Disneyland Paris.
So it's almost like you're taking the monorail.
Wow.
Exactly.
Only without some Spanish guy going, por favor, manténse.
which is a massive highlight, of course. But I mean, I think the fares for that are, about just under €2, so about just over £1 really, each way. So it's not a lot of money to pay on top of your trip. That you would be, if I stay in a hotel there, I'll probably save about £200 a trip.
Wow.
And, yeah. Other than that, I mean, on the Disney staying places you've got is Camp David Crockett, which is you take a trailer park and then you put cladding on the outside of the trailers to make it look like log cabins.
So it's a bit like the cabins at Fort Wilderness, I think. Right.
Yeah, I have stayed there. I'm not a big fan, but I won't be going back to that particular establishment. The place I do want to stay, and this is the one that probably makes all the photographs, is the Disneyland Hotel. It is directly above the ticket booths and the turnstiles. So technically, some of the rooms, one of the floors, are actually inside the park.
Oh wow!
Cool.
It is the top of the line. Yeah, it's the Grand Floridian, if you will.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure it matches necessarily the Grand Floridian, but it's the top hotel they've got there. Disney.
It has a little bit of that look. It looks a little bit Grand Floridian.
You can see they've taken the Disney touches to it, and you've got everything you need from a Disney hotel there. Really, they're all clean. They're all very perfunctory. They do their job. I don't really, as much as I can take the Michael. I was looking for a slightly ruder word, but I don't know if you've got the same tag we used to have. But they all serve a job, and again, we've already mentioned we don't go there for a fortnight at a time.
Right.
I'd struggle to afford to stay in the Newport Bay Club for a fortnight, but I'd also completely lose my mind.
See, now I went to Disneyland California this past summer, and I kind of feel the same way about that. It's nice. I mean, you're there, that Walt has walked these streets. It's very cool because you see his touches everywhere. But to spend more than a few days there, like you would at Walt Disney World, you're completely immersed when you go to Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
Where at Disneyland California, you can see the houses on the other side of the fence in essence, and I mean not quite, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
That you're in a small community park. You're not in the massive resort that Walt Disney World is.
Yeah, you're in the entertainment enterprise that you could take your daughters to on a Saturday morning that he envisaged. That's it.
Right. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, Paris doesn't have that problem, to be fair. I mean, the land around it, they built enough of it to make sure that wasn't kind of repeated. Yeah, I think they learned a lot from Disneyland, and that has never been repeated at any of the other parks.
Right.
For that reason.
What do you suppose is keeping them from expanding then, the Disneyland Paris?
I mean, saying that, I mean, they actually are. I don't think we've mentioned this on our show actually, but I'm sure the other guys have seen. They're building a kind of like nature reserve park that is kind of
camp,
an eco camp, which is kind of like a glass domed kind of nature reserve, so almost like a forest under a dome, which we have a few of those around Europe anyway. And that's being built very close to the site. It's not really going to be Disney themed, but at the same time, there'll obviously be touches. They'll use it as a kind of third gate of sorts. But yeah, I think really that, make no bones about it, there was a lot of financial insecurity with Disneyland Paris or Euro Disney when it first opened, and really throughout the years, and it's only just really starting to pay off. So that really is the main contributor to why it's not expanded in the same way that Florida did or anything. But
I mean, there are contractual reasons they have to expand.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
As part of agreements, I mean, they had to have 2 gates built by a certain period. So I think it was within the first 10 years they had to open a second gate, which they managed to within 8 years, I think, of the original park opening. The third park will be, or the third gate technically will be open. I think it's 2016. And they're still talking about the potential to have like a Marvel area.
Okay,
that's the one they're really
very good.
They're really, I mean, the thing is, a lot of it is hearsay, really. Until these things are made final,
like Avatar Land.
Yeah, don't know sure, but the advantage that they have compared to the other locations is there's no Marvel contracts in place.
Huh.
So there's nothing stopping them doing it, basically.
I mean, we've got a Ratatouille ride opening sometime this year.
Yep.
We were, I believe we were I say we. It's like, hey, it's we, because I own part of how self-important. How self-important am I?
I do have stock, so I own stock, so I do own. Yes,
he's my boss.
With that.
So Disneyland Paris was the first park that broke the story of a potential Star Wars land.
Yeah.
Because we've still got Star Wars or Star Tours 1.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So during, I would have uploaded some footage of it from YouTube, but I got told off in French for videoing
it. That's the worst way to get told off, I think.
Yeah.
In French, there's not many worse ways. But yeah, I mean, so there's a few things like that, but I think it's looking quite likely that Disneyland Paris may well be the first park with a Star Wars land of sorts.
Because the buildings are already there.
Yeah,
pretty much.
That's awesome.
I mean, the Discovery Land.
Do it as well. Go on.
Discovery Land, as it's known in Paris, is completely different to the Tomorrowland of the other parks. When it was first built, and there's lots of sites you can see pictures and read about it, but it was very much based around the views of Jules Verne and writers of that time. So it was more of like a steampunk kind of design to everything. And actually, the original story behind Space Mountain in Disneyland Paris was of From Earth to the Moon. Like being shot out of a giant cannon, right? Like the very old film by Georges Méliès. I mean, that theme is now changed, and that whole area is kind of changed. But so for those reasons, it's a different feel and look to any other Tomorrowland. But in that section, you had Star Tours. Next door to it, you had a massive building which hosted Captain EO, and then Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, and Captain EO now again. And like just besides that, there's a small restaurant which at the moment is Pizza Planet. But that whole area, they can basically turn it into a little Star Wars land, and that's the kind of plan at the moment. So they'll have their own Jedi Academy inside, because it'd have to be inside in Paris, as well as building some other bits and pieces, and a cantina restaurant. So.
That'll be cool.
That'd be awesome.
In fact, the whole Discoveryland area, all the Disney parks around the world have pretty much got Disneyland Paris to thank for Tower of Terror, because the original ride mechanics of a lift type ride that took you up, took you through a tableau, took you up and then dropped you was based on a ride they designed to get to Journey to the Centre of the Earth, based on Jules Verne.
Really?
That took you in and then took you up a volcano and then dropped you down into the centre of the volcano. And this was all going to go inside Space Mountain. So Space Mountain was going to be an area rather than just a ride.
Okay.
An entire undercover mountain. And the ride mechanics, they took it, they designed it, they had a guy work with Otis Lifts or whoever it was to come up with the mechanics for it.
Manufacturers are available.
Yeah. I was in Germany the other day and I was in a lift. It had Schindler on it, and I just I was in Germany in Schindler's lift. It was awesome. They designed that whole ride, and obviously then they thought, well, we can only really fit one roller coaster inside Space Mountain, but they had this ride mechanics designed, so then they designed Tower of Terror around it. So
wow,
very cool.
That's very cool. Yeah, that's something I did not know.
No.
Was there ever a...
have I come over all Lou Mongello now?
There's always room for Mongello.
That's right.
Was there ever... I know that Disneyland Paris went through some pretty tumultuous times. Was there ever any talk of them just shutting the whole thing down and saying, well, we gave it a shot, but things aren't going well?
Yeah, there totally was. I actually, he says laughing. I actually read a book about it a couple of years ago. I got bought for as a Christmas present. For the life of me, I can't remember what the book was called, but I think it's out of print now. But it was written by an American cast member that went to Disneyland Paris for its opening, and kind of talks about all the expectation before it opened, and then why it might have failed a little bit, and what happened and how it kind of came back a bit. To cut a very long story short, culturally, the French, although Disney was popular, the French are a very proud country of tradition, and they saw it as an American corporation coming in and trying to Americanize France.
Right, so, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, and things as well, like the French are very famous for drinking wine and having wine with every meal.
Says the guy on the podcast that opens with beer.
but they did silly things like not being very limited in where you could buy alcohol from within the park. Now the thing is, culturally in France, that was a massive mistake. And it was those
you could be a heart surgeon and then go out for a couple of glasses of wine at lunchtime and then go back to work.
Yeah,
and go
not
back.
a problem. It's the culture, and I think the problem is that the people that were working on this project at the time were just trying to put Disneyland in France, and what they should have really done is gone, right, this is what we want to do. How's this going to work? Which is what they've done with Shanghai Disney, with Hong Kong Disney, with Disneyland Tokyo. So it was weird they didn't do it, but it was these kind of things that, as soon as the doors opened, caused problems.
Yeah,
and it just meant that the attendance wasn't there. So it was a combination, really, of culturally being wrong, but also a bit of a revolt on the Americanization, as they saw it, of France. And 1995 rolled around, and they were literally about 6 weeks from having to pull out.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Which was ridiculous. I mean, to be honest, I mean, this was what I've read in the book. I don't know if it ever was as immediate as that, because sometimes you can take dramatic license, but there's been no court case, so I assume it was fine to write it. But I don't think it was publicised in quite the same way in the media at the time. But I mean, it did get really close to, and the whole thing with France as well. Disney couldn't just move into France; they had to go into partnership with the French government.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it would have been just as easy as Disney going, right, we're putting the padlock on the door, because the French government would have kind of had to have done something about it themselves. but it got very close to it, and they did get as someone kind of buy into Disneyland Paris, or Euro as it's known financially, to kind of save the day, and is still a majority shareholder to this point in time. And so it's the Sultan that stepped in that really kind of made sure that things happened. And it was that cash injection in 1995 that allowed them to get that second gate opened.
Wow.
As well. So it was very important. And I think the history of Disneyland Paris, and I'm not, as much as I'll try and come across as an expert, I really will admit that I'm not. But, I think it's probably got the most interesting history of any of the parks purely on that basis.
Right.
You'll get much nicer and better stories from Florida.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, because of Walt's involvement, amazing stories from Disneyland, California. But I think because of the situation that was unfolding, at a time as well when Disney as a company were only really starting to recover themselves, and you had that happening as well, I think it's a really interesting situation.
Yes, not all pixie dust.
No, definitely not. They could have done with something.
It's always, the stories are one thing. It's the cultural differences that always amuse me. That we had, Nick's already touched on it, the fact that we can go to Casey's Corner and get a hot dog and have a nice bottle of Chenin Blanc with it.
Yeah, right.
And it's only in the latter months that Disney World Magic Kingdom said, well, we're going to start serving Cronenberg 1664 in one singular restaurant at one singular dinner time in Fantasyland. And, the interwebs just went in uproar.
Crazy.
Yes.
No, Walt would be turning in his cryo chamber and all of that. And we're sitting there going, what? I could walk up Main Street cracking open a tinny.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre cultural differences that obviously have had their impact on the parks in France.
So the moral of that story is, for all you kids out there listening, do your homework or the French will kick you out.
That's right.
Pretty much.
Or don't build in France.
All that.
Ironically enough, I didn't do any homework and got kicked out of French.
Nice.
Real quick, I just have a question. Non-Disneyland Paris, but being from the UK, what do you think about the UK Pavilion at Epcot? Is it accurate? Is it? What are your thoughts?
Go on, guys. I've got different thoughts to you.
Go on, Paul.
Well, it's kind of idealized, isn't it? I mean, it's not. I would guess that if you asked the same of anybody from any of the other countries, they would all say that it's a kind of condensed, idealized version. So we have pubs like the Rose and Crown, and we have, I guess, you got a little representation of different shops and fish and chips and things like that. So all of that exists in the UK, but it isn't necessarily typical of what you would see in any high street in any town. Just like the American Adventure, or the American Pavilion.
Yeah, it's probably not a building you'll find in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah,
no, right, exactly.
So it's that kind of idealized version.
Okay,
and it showcases certain British brands and certain British features. So it does the job from that point of view.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
However, we only do listen to the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Kinks, and the Jam. So, and we don't have any concert halls. We just have bands playing outside
with rock bands playing The Who.
That's great.
So I've sort of moved around the UK from place to place occasionally, and I've lived in big cities and smaller towns, and I've now at that point I was it's Epcot. It's a stylized. You take it with the same pinch of salt, and then you walk around to places like Norway, and you think, well, if this is the representation of Norway that the UK is equivalent to the UK representation of England, the rest of the UK, then you kind of get an idea of what they're trying to do with it. But I now live in a tiny, teeny little village on the South Downs of England with a pub called the Rose and Crown.
Oh, nice.
And thatched roofs and a tea house and a bandstand that no one ever plays there. There's normally kids just drinking White Lightning and skateboarding. So now I kind of offer and go, yeah, I actually live in Epcot.
Oh, wow.
That is awesome.
I would say that it is a very stylized version. Recently, a couple of years ago now, I went to Morocco, the actual country.
Mm-hmm.
I had been to the Moroccan pavilion, and I will say for that, probably that one only, stick to the Moroccan pavilion and don't visit the country.
Now there's a tip.
This way, yeah. I mean, and it is a very good tip because it was a bit like being in a giant game of Frogger. Like trying to cross the road anywhere, like lights would go red, green man would come on, you would still get run over if they could. I was in about 5 different taxis when I was out there, had 4 different car crashes. It's an amazing place, but I think the Epcot version is slightly better
and safer.
and safer.
Do you find it slightly amusing that obviously you've got these areas and then you've got the France area and it's all stylized? You've got the Paris Metro poster stations and the boulangerie and everything like that, and they've got this stylized France. And over in Disneyland Paris, they're now building a Ratatouille ride. And they're theming it, the area around it, and there's like photographs of the theming, and they're theming it around Paris. And it's going to have a Parisian theme. It's like, yeah, I don't want to swear much, but dudes, that would be like putting a Floridian theme to a ride somewhere in Orlando.
Yeah.
But then you've got the Grand Floridian. So is that not a Floridian? I don't know. If you want a Paris theme, just step out the park, get on the train and go to Paris. Dudes.
There you go.
That would be almost as crazy as having soaring over California at Disneyland at the California. Oh, wait a minute. No,
that'll never happen. That's ridiculous.
That would never happen.
This is what this place would look like if you were 300 foot above it.
Look, you can see yourself down there.
Right. Wait. Oh, jeez. Well, listen, guys, these are our friends at the Diz After Dark over the pond, as they say. Yes, Paul, and Nick. We really appreciate you guys coming on. Thanks so much.
Tell people once again where they can find you.
At www.disafterdark.com and all the others. Yeah.
iTunes, Stitcher, we're everywhere.
See, this is why I let Tim handle that part, because I don't remember either. So,
iTunes, just look for Diz After Dark. That's DISAFTERDARK. Just be careful how you spell that.
Yes, be careful. But send them a good rating. They're an excellent podcast. Send them 5 stars.
Look for that. Look for that non-hidden Mickey as the logo. And hey, shout out. Hey, Nick. Good luck on that baby.
Thank you very much. I mean, personally, I won't be having it.
That's a whole other podcast.
Thank you, guys. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Well, I think we better sign off, Bob.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Join us at ResortLoop.com. You can follow me at ResortLoopTim on Twitter.
I'm ResortLoop Bob on Twitter and Facebook /ResortLoop.
Excellent. And look us up on iTunes. Give us a review if you deem us worthy.
Are you pondering what I'm pondering?
Very nice. Well, I'm Tim Scott.
I'm Bob Collar.
We'll catch you next time, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
I think I took your line there at the end. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. I got confused.
Hey,
shiny object.
It's the Guinness.
I'm out.
It's the Guinness.
All right, they're gone. Should we talk about them? Oh, that was fun.